If you're like me, you want to enjoy all the health benefits of reducing processed sugar in your diet, but not at the expense of enjoying your favorite treats. Well, we are definitely in this together, and I'm excited to show you how to make healthy homemade Snicker bars. They're gluten-free with oat and almond flour, naturally sweetened with maple syrup, and nutrient dense. They also don't require any cooking and are really fun and easy to make. And as a bonus at the end of this video, I'll show you a sugar comparison between a traditional Snickers bar and our homemade version. We'll begin by lining a bread pan with a piece of parchment paper that will make it so much easier for us to get our bars out of the pan. So we'll begin by just folding one side square along the edges, place the pan on top, score the other side of the paper, move the pan, fold the paper, flip the paper over, fold it in, crease one side, crease the other side, and it's ready to go. Well, to make our nougat layer, or is it nugget? I'm not sure, but I'll go with the nougat. To make this layer, we're going to start with 3/4 of a cup of almond flour, then 3/4 of a cup of oat flour, and then we're going to add 3 tablespoons of maple syrup and 3 tablespoons of coconut oil. For a little bit of flavor, we'll add 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla and a dash of salt. Now we're just going to take our spatula and start mixing this. And it's going to look really dry at first, but it will come together as we mix those ingredients together. There we go. We have a nice dough that we can press into the bottom of our pan. So now we'll simply take our prepared pan and we'll dump in our dough. And with our spatula, we'll start pressing that dough out into the pan and just kind of holding on to the side of the parchment paper to hold it in place. And we just want to have that spread out nice and even throughout our pan. And it doesn't have to look perfect on top because it's going to be covered up with several more layers. Now I'll set this aside and we'll make our caramel layer. We'll use the same bowl that we had before and we'll add 1/4 cup of almond butter, 3 tablespoons of maple syrup, 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, a dash of salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. Now we'll use our same spatula and just stir it together until it's well combined. And you can use your spatula and just kind of mash the almond butter to help it spread a little bit easier. So now we'll bring our pan back and we'll just simply dump our caramel into the pan. And then we'll spread it around with our spatula. And it wouldn't be a Snickers bar without the peanuts. So now we can sprinkle in about 1/2 cup of peanuts. And we want pretty much a solid layer of nuts across the top. So you can spread them out and then just go in by hand and scoosh them down into the caramel. Now you'll want to put this into the freezer for at least an hour, which will make it much easier for dipping in the melted chocolate. So I have a batch here that I made up earlier this morning and it's been in the freezer for probably about an hour and a half. And so now I'm going to take a knife and just simply run it along the 2 edges that didn't have parchment paper, just to help release it. And now we can go ahead and just lift it up and out with our little parchment paper handles. Oh, that looks so amazing. See the beautiful layers with the nugget and then our caramel and then our peanuts on top. These are going to taste so good. So now we want to go ahead and cut this into our bars. And so I'm going to start by cutting it just in half along the width. And then I'll take the 2 halves and cut them both in half again. And then now I'll take these 4ths and cut each of them in half. You can leave them like this as a full-size Snickers candy bar, or you can cut them in half again to make them snack size. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm just gonna go down the middle, cut them in half again. And now for the best part, which is dipping in chocolate. For the melting chocolate, just start with 1/2 cup of your favorite chocolate chips, and then you'll want to add 1 teaspoon of coconut oil just to help those melt down a little bit easier. And then I'm just gonna put this in the microwave for about 30 seconds, or you could melt it in a double boiler on your stove. So after 30 seconds, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a quick stir just to mix those chips around. And then I'm going to put it back into the microwave for another 30 seconds. Now we can mix it with our spatula until it's nice and smooth. And to make these easier to dip, I'm gonna go ahead and use just this little rectangular dish, and I'm gonna go ahead and pour my chocolate into it. Now I have a cookie sheet with a piece of parchment paper underneath a wire rack to be able to put the Snickers on once they have chocolate on them. Now I'm definitely not a professional chocolatier, I think that's the right word, but you don't have to be for this next step. Basically, we're just trying to get chocolate on top of the bars and onto the tray. So there's lots of different ways that this can be done. So we'll experiment with a few and see what we like best. So the first method is to turn it upside down and then just stab it with a fork. And then I'm going to dip it in the chocolate, and then I can just roll it back and forth, end to end. Ooh, that looks good. And then dip it up so that the little loop or the little drip goes up on top. And then now we just have to get this off the fork. There we go. And onto the tray. Okay, that worked pretty good. Now I'm not concerned with having chocolate on the bottom of each of the bars because there's a lot of chocolate on this as is, and I don't think it needs any more. Plus, it just makes things easier for handling it. So let's try that method again. So stab it from underneath and then dip, roll one way, the other way, end to end. Oops, we lost it. So we'll just pick it up with our fingers. That drip on there, and then just get it onto our tray. Success. A little messy, but success. All right, so now that our hands are already messy, let's go ahead and just do one by hand and see how that works out for us. We'll just dip end to end to end to the other end. Okay, so that's a little bit messier. I would say that is the least preferred method. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse my fingers off. So now another method that I want to try is putting the bar onto our tray and then just dishing some chocolate on top. And we'll see if that will kind of run down both sides. So let's give that a try. Okay, well, that's definitely the easiest in terms of keeping our fingers clean, but it takes a little bit of work to get the chocolate all the way around to drip down the sides. All right, so that's method number 3. And let's try one more method. Go ahead and put this on the tray. We'll be less concerned about covering all the Snickers, and what if we just kind of let it drip and let that be part of the aesthetic? Well, that's really fun too. I think that looks great. Before I finish dipping the rest of these, I'll show you a fun way to add a little more detail to the top. And that's with one of these little food frosting little squeeze bottles. So I've just filled it with some chocolate, and then I'm just going to go across the top of one of these and then just do a couple little drizzles across the top. Ooh, that looks cute. That just gives it a little more of a finished look to it. And then we want to finish it off with a little sprinkle of some coarse sea salt. And this just really brings in that sweet and salty flavor that is so delicious. And they look really cool. Our 16 homemade Snicker bars are now decorated. Now, ideally you'd want to store these in the fridge and allow the chocolate to set, but I'm not that patient and I'm excited to try one. Crunchy. That is so good. Honestly, I think that tastes even better than a real Snickers. I get the chewy nougat layer with some richness from the oat and the almond flour. And then I get the caramel layer with that almond butter, which is just yummy and gooey. And then the crunch of the peanuts totally gives it that classic Snickers flavor. And then having the little sprinkle of sea salt on the top totally brings in that sweet and salty combo. That is fantastic. And honestly, I would pick this over Snickers any day. And now for the sugar comparison I promised. I cut down the Snickers bar so it's roughly the same size as one of our homemade Snickers bars. So the original Snickers bar has about 16 grams of sugar in it, which is equal to about 4 sugar cubes. And our homemade Snickers bar only has about 4¼ grams of sugar in it, which is equal to about 1 sugar cube. And I painted it brown just to illustrate the fact that it is a natural sweetener. And if you go with the method of just drizzling chocolate on top of the bar and not fully dunking it, then it's going to have even less sugar. Now, of course, this is still a treat and should definitely be eaten in moderation, but at least it's a much healthier way that we can both enjoy one of our favorite treats. And oh darn, I'll just have to keep practicing my chocolate dipping skills till I get it right. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me in my kitchen and making these fun Snicker bars. And if you'd like to see the recipe card for this video, please visit my website, which is gentletummy.com. And I also invite you to like and subscribe to my channel. And if you have a friend who you think would love to have a healthier Snicker bars recipe, please share this video with them. And I cannot wait to have you with me again in my kitchen next time.